Hey, everybody, and welcome to The Brand Called You. This is the podcast where we speak to thought leaders from all over the world. And I'm so excited about today's thought leader, Fabienne Jacquet. So, I have to tell you, I first met Fabienne, I want to say at least 20 years ago, at a corporate conference in Nice, France. I had been invited to speak on the power of storytelling to business leaders. And I was so nervous because I was a storyteller in my little storytelling outfit, and there were all these corporate people there. And I remember at the networking event, there was just a sea of navy blue suits. And then suddenly I saw this odd pop of color, and it was bright red, and it was Fabienne's shoes. So I ran over to her. And of course, immediately we became kindred spirits and couldn't stop talking. And she rather bravely, I think, ended up hiring me about a year later to create a storytelling program for her scientists at Colgate who needed some help with their delivery of facts and figures. And it's been a wonderful relationship ever since. Fabienne is, when I met her, she was head of innovation for Colgate Palmolive, but she went on to do so many amazing things. She did a similar role at International Flavors and Fragrances based in Netherlands. She's an award-winning author, a speaker, and she's just written a brand new book, which I cannot wait to hear about, Fabienne. Champagne and Apple Pie.
Yeah, this is my
Welcome.
baby.
Welcome. Tell
Thank
me,
you.
yeah, I guess the best place to start is where the impetus for this book came about. Let's start with the book and then we'll go backwards.
It was 5 years ago that I wrote my first book, Venus Genius, The Female Prescription for Innovation. And it was after leaving the corporate world and having been in innovation as a scientist first and a marketer that I realized that innovation was really driven by the masculine energy of performance, and so, which is good at the end of the process. But at the beginning, we need to have more what we call the so feminine traits of empathy, intuition, collaboration. And it's not about women versus men, it's really about the masculine and feminine energies we all have in us in different, degrees and balance. And it helped me reinvent myself. And I realized that my life reinvention, personal life, was exactly following my professional life reinvention. So this shift from my masculine side, having a big motorcycle, being a scientist, only with men, corporate, and so on, whoo, suddenly reconnecting to my feminine here, that I felt and just wanted to get out. And so I'm now more, I think, more balanced between both, which is good, more centered. And it helped me in my professional life with innovation. This is why I wrote that book to help people rebalance so that we have innovation that is sustainable and has value for this world. And then I always had a book in me. We say that, but it's true about my experience when I moved from France to the US in the early 90s as a single woman who, we never lived abroad. We hardly traveled with my parents and so on. And suddenly I'm proposed in this new world. And it was an experience. No internet at the time, no cell phones. And it was a discovery. And I realized that, a lot of people think expatriation is running away from who they are, from their problems, leaving their past self and reinventing a new self. Nope, no, 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 no. The real reinvention, this is what I found, is that you discover who you really are. Because when you are in a new environment where you don't know the ropes, you have to discover new facets of yourselves that were buried under the routine of your life where everything is comfortable, everything is easy. And suddenly you challenge yourself and you discover who you really are. So this is the entire theme of the new book, champagne, of course, France, and apple pie. And interestingly, I narrated in the book for the icon for France, I didn't hesitate 1 second. You know me, I love champagne. For the US, I had some ideas, and then I had a brainstorming, what I do best, with my friends. And when somebody came up with apple pie. I say, is it American? I say, oh, yeah. And I was introduced to this famous 1975 Chevrolet advertising, and I understood, yes, apple pie is definitely America. And so champagne and apple pie. And somebody in my network came, I was like, reinventing your life. I say, no, no, uncork your new life. I say, yeah, it works. And so it's really about reinventing your life. And also, which is very important for me, is to reinvent it not to become a better version of yourself, trying to fix yourself. However, it's building on your strengths and your passions so that you can create a joyful purpose, not in the constraints, but in building and leveraging your strengths. And as a chemist, like for Venus Genius, I created my own little formula that I decipher in the book on how to do that.
I interviewed you for your first book, Venus Genius, when it first came out like 5 years ago, which was fascinating because you had discovered that companies were not harnessing this sort of quote feminine power enough, the collaborative, generous, all the qualities we associate with female, and you were sort of helping them innovate by simply thinking about these feminine qualities, which is fascinating. And now what I find so interesting is you're kind of taking that same a kind of chemist's approach, but you're doing it with people, individuals, as opposed to companies. And for me, it spoke to me very personally because, as you know, I was an expat in the Netherlands for, over 15 years, and I always said to people that I didn't learn about America. I didn't learn about the Netherlands. I learned about America, and I learned about myself. But I have to say, it's probably the hardest thing in the world to remove yourself from your own culture and be in another one. But you also, in some ways, learn so much about yourself, and in a way, you're kind of helping people get the expat experience without necessarily having to move to another country, just to ask those basic questions. But I mean, one of the things that came up in your book that was very interesting in me is, how much of our past do we need to get rid of in order to find our joy, our passion? I mean, again, another question that for me was very personal because I think I was running from a very difficult home life with a Holocaust survivor mother and a lot of sort of intergenerational trauma. And I thought that by going to another country, it would relieve me of that. It did to some extent, but some of those issues, remained even after I had to return. So I don't know if it's possible to leave your past behind. I don't know how you deal with do you approach that in your book? Is there a formula for sort of somehow severing the worst parts of your past, or do you always have to keep it with you?
It's fascinating because I will refer to Charles Pepin, Vivre avec son passé, which means live with your past. And I love that book because he says you cannot erase your past because your past is you, is part of you.
Mhm.
However, what people do, and maybe this is what you did, they lived in the past and you have to live with it. And so it's just acknowledging and recognizing that your past is there and you don't run away from it. You bring it with you, but you reinvent it. It's part of you and you are looking forward. You don't look backwards. And when you say, okay, this is who I am. And as have a quote in the book, we're already perfect. Why try to improve ourselves? I'm so tired. Yeah, our entire life. People say, oh, you should improve that, you should improve that. Why don't we build on our strengths, our passions? Because this is where the energy is. And this is why, yes, your past is you, but it doesn't block you. It's part of you, it's your foundation. Now, on this, build what is the future, which is joyful and which is based on what I call the strengths, what you like to do, what you love to do, and what you are good at.
But
So when you combine both, it gives you energy.
isn't that a bit naive to say the past doesn't define you? I mean, suppose, your past was filled with criticism and self-doubt, stitched into your very psyche. How can you possibly shed that, or find joy in that?
I think this is beyond my level of expertise. I'm not a psychiatrist or whatever, but this is my experience, the experience from other people. When you place yourself in a new environment, you
Mhm.
discover, to your point, the facets of yourself that
Mm,
you didn't know before. I give the example in the book of with my masculine control freak side a little bit. I was like, I want to control everything. I wanted to control everything. And when you are in a new environment, when you don't master the language, you don't know the ropes, nothing. And again, it was limited communication with friends because, no internet and no cell phones. You really need to ask for help. And I never did that before. I never asked for help. I'm big and I know how to do that. I can handle myself. And suddenly I was like weakened. And I was a little bit when you're sick, or you travel, when you're in a different environment and you don't know and you're scared. And yes, ask for help. And this was so healing for me because I thought asking for help would bother people, but people love to help. They do. You ask and they do. Okay, so it to me was a huge discovery, and I
mhm.
integrated that into my new life. Say, hey, if I don't know, I ask for help.
Well, speaking of which, I wondered if your book was inspired by the fact that you started to write it after you moved from the New York area to South Carolina. And I kind of wanted to ask you if you consider yourself a sort of expat because moving from the Northeast to the South is like moving to a different country. It's a completely different culture. And I'm curious if, how did it affect you and what did you learn about yourself? I mean, does it feel like you've moved in a way to a whole new country? And are you having any revelations based on that move?
Excellent question, because as I say, the book is about my expatriation from France to the US, and
Right,
I interviewed a lot of people who traveled internationally, sorry. But it's also moving next door. You
right.
can move to a next neighborhood and don't know people, don't know the ropes, and have to reinvent, and to rebuild your network. So yes, moving from the New York area to South Carolina was a huge cultural shift. However, and this is what I explained in the book, you need to be in the environment that has the right energy for you in that time of your life. So the
Mm.
tri-state area for me was perfect. When I was in the corporate world, I was younger, I was all active, and suddenly when we visited Charleston several times, and I really fell in love with the city, and I'm from the south of France, I'm from Toulouse, and Charleston reminded me of that, the low pace, people smiling in the street, the sun, the humidity, and so I felt like at home, and I have almost an entire chapter about home in the book. What is home, especially for expatriates? And I felt like, yes, I need that energy now. I don't need the buzz and the quick pace and so on of New York anymore. It did what it had to do previously. Now, in this life stage, I need more slow energy and warmer and quieter, and it's beautiful too. So beauty is also part of the fact I fell in love with this part of the world.
What about culturally? Is it reawakening something different in you? Is it teaching you different lessons? The different value system, for example?
It's interesting because, as I explained in chapter 8, you build your social network and you build it through activities you like to do so that you meet the right people. For example, I'm a member of the library, so I meet people. I'm a member of a museum, so I meet people. In a kayaking club with women, so I meet other women. So you create your own network and you
Mhm.
can create it anywhere. And but what is nice is that it's also challenging because yes, it's a different culture here, and I was exposed more closely to the American African culture that I love, and so I learned a lot. I was the Civil War that started here, so a lot of history I didn't really. I was not close to when I was in New York, but here suddenly is present because it's here, it's the architecture, it's in the history, it's in the people. So it was a new face of the US that I discovered, which was fantastic. And also, again, I was adopted in this. You have to be adopted in this new environment, and this is the beauty of it.
I mean, speaking of new environment, I mean, didn't all aren't all bets off now that the country is changing so dramatically politically, and that has to shake your whole notion of what assumptions that you made about your place in America, for example.
I still love America like the way it is. I don't talk politics. I don't do politics. I talk values. And to me, I still see the good
Mhm.
values in this country. And this is what I have to focus on.
What are some of the values you particularly cherish?
The entrepreneurial energy and all the interviews, especially the French ones in the book, said the same thing. The creative energy here, entrepreneurship, the openness, the fact that people, okay, this job doesn't work, okay, I change. So there is a mobility.
Improvisation, their ability to improvise.
Yes, improvise. There is a mobility. There is a joy of life also, which is different from the one in Europe, and you know very well because you lived in both continents. I mean, in the US and in Europe, it's different. But here, I don't know. There is, yeah, this like the pioneer spirit, which is still there, and explore and innovation and creation, and don't be afraid. And you fail, no problem. You come back and you do something else. So this flexibility, this open-mindedness somewhere, I loved. And I say in the book, I find, especially French people, I love the culture. A lot of things about the culture, I have it with me. Again, this is part of me. However, the complaining part and not smiling, and I start the book with that anecdote, okay? This is a little bit tough for me. It is not my energy. So I don't say it's good or bad. Again, you have to find the energy that's right for you. And when I came to the US the first time, it was in 1980. I narrated in the book too. And I arrived in it and I felt it. Again, I felt so, wow, this is the energy I love. This is what I want. And the team spirit, cooperation. I learned the win-win concept here in the US. So you see, to me, this is still that. The US is that, and this you have opportunities, and I think this is the word that I heard the most when I asked people what they liked in the US. It's opportunities.
I hope to God that your positive philosophy about America can last long after this current administration. You talk about in your book like a formula.
Yeah.
Um, can you go through the stages of that formula? I want to hear, like, if I want to really start anew, which I desperately do, like, what are some of the formulaic stages?
Okay, and so as I say, don't be afraid if you skip the chemistry classes at school. That's fine. I guide you. I explain what chemistry is, and I demystify all that in the book, so that you're safe. um, so again, I come back to these strengths and these passions. So we have innate strengths, okay? The ones we were born with or we acquire naturally through the years. So these are your strengths, and I help you. I have exercises and guidance all along the formula to help you. So you can identify those strengths, innate. And basically, they are what we love to do, what you are good at. This is where you have to really focus on your efforts. Then you have the aspirational strengths. And these are strengths or skills or activities that you would like to do, but you are not good at. And usually, this is what you admire in others. When you have mentors, when you have people you admire, jot down what you admire about them because this is what you aspire to do. So you have energy there and you can improve either with training or working and so on. And then you have all the things you don't like to do, and this don't do. I give the example that in the quarter, I don't like to do, I'm
Place would
not good
be
at.
messy, messier than it is already.
Thank you. I hate jogging. I hate that. I'm a good walker. I can walk. I love that. I hate jogging. Why shall I torture myself to try jog if I don't like it and I'm not good at it? So this is eliminated. You see, so this is how I classify the strengths and so on. So I help you identify those innate strengths, those aspirational strengths, and then the passions. And one of my earlier readers, oh, she made me smile because she said, I never thought about revisiting my childhood dreams. And they are
Mm.
so powerful. And we forgot about them, Yes, I wanted to be that. And I explain in the book, it's not about remembering that you wanted to be a nurse or a firefighter. It's not about that. It's why. And I have the anecdote of it's an author on Medium who was saying that when he was 7 years old, he wanted to be a garbage guy. And everybody's like, "Phew, what a lack of ambition." So why garbage guy? And then he explains. He said, because every Wednesday I saw this gleaming truck going around the neighborhood, and you had the guys, hanging behind like heroes and so on. And to me, it was like, wow, it's very physical, it's great, it's heroes. And cherry on the cake, they came only once a week. So I say they work only a day per week. And this is why he wanted to be a garbage guy. So it just explains that when you had something, you have to deconstruct, sorry, the reasons behind that. If you wanted to be a firefighter, is it for, to impress girls and because you wanted the costume and so on, and or is it to save people's life? This is a very, very different motivation. So these are your
You're
passions.
getting down to the core values driving those aspirations.
Absolutely. It's exactly that. And then when you have all these ingredients of the formula, it's like cooking, you have all the ingredients, and then you need some energy to transform that into the final recipe. And the energy is the brain. You really mix all that. And so we brainstorm, and I have examples in the book. You brainstorm with different people, mixing all these ingredients. We did also with AI. I must say that I prefer the human brains because we actually came up with similar one was the same option, but all the options developed by the human brains were more compassionate, they were more linked to feelings and emotions. And AI was very good, but it was very fact-based, very factual in
Yeah,
terms of the
that was
options.
interesting.
Yeah. And what is interesting is that sometimes only the power of brain is not enough or time. Because as I say, aging is a very good way of knowing ourselves, but it takes, mercifully, a long time. So you can catalyze that. And one of the catalysts is expatriation. But it can be the death of a loved one. It can be the birth of a baby. It can be a wedding. It can be losing a job. It can be retirement. We
Any
have so
transition,
many,
the
exactly,
transition.
any
Yeah.
dramatic transition in your life. I narrate expatriation because this is my big experience that made me realize it was a catalyst to reinvent who I was, but it can be any big change. So once you do that, then you get options, and they should be your purpose, but joyful. Again, don't try to do something you don't like, you're not good at. Why? Life is too short.
There's like, if I think about the whole book, there's just like one sentence that really like shook me up a bit where you talked about safety, a feeling of safety. And I realized like I'm so comfortable in my own discomfort, and I've learned how to navigate my own feelings of lack of safety emotionally so well that I don't even know like how to ask that question. So I was just curious if you could elaborate on that whole notion.
I'm not sure we're never safe emotionally. We're
Mm.
not. I think it's a lifelong work. You just go with the flow and master as you go. And but I don't think we're never ever safe emotionally. And luckily, because it would be boring and we would be stagnating.
Yeah.
To move, you need to be, pushed. So sometimes, yes, it's nice to be challenged, and it's nice to. And again, you go through the cycles. You're happy. You have day, night, and so on. This is Mother Nature. I talk a lot about nature in the book too, because we forget that when we say, "Oh yeah, there are humans and there is nature." No, we are nature. Humans are nature. Let's not forget that.
I wrote down my favorite quotes from your book, and I want you to just speak about them. This was my favorite was your mom's. She said, "What the public criticizes in you, cultivate. It's you." Love that.
Yeah,
The
actually, it's Jean
opposite of the
Cocteau.
message I got, by the way. The message I got was don't do it. You don't.
Yeah, but and it's funny because I'm very honest there. My mother always said that. So to me, it was my mother. And one day I wrote that in a LinkedIn post, and someone said, "Well, actually, it's Jean Cocteau, this French philosopher and artist and
Oh,
so on, and blah,
sorry.
blah, blah, who, yeah, who said it?" And my mother just read. But to me, I still hear my mother, and it
Yeah.
was so great because it was the premises of this formula where I say, don't try to fix yourself. Fabienne, you're too emotional. Well, if I am emotional, I'm creating innovation that resonates emotionally with consumers. This is why I'm successful. So don't try to suppress my emotions. Let's build on that to make sure they're under
Mm.
control and producing something positive. See, it's a different twist. It's not trying to fix, it's trying to leverage. I don't say we don't have to improve. Of course, we have to improve, but we have to improve in the right direction, building and not constraining and trying to repress.
And the other favorite quote is, "A man with few friends is only half developed."
Oh, yeah, I do believe I have a very small family. And especially when you are an expatriate, it's more difficult to be with them. And my friends are my family, adopted family, as we say, but it's true. And I have different, like everyone, different facets for my personality. And I discovered that I have a lot of different friends who correspond to these different facets. And also those who challenge me. There are some I'm totally in sync, like with you, we're like, poof, poof, we don't need to talk and we know what the other things. But with some people, I don't really understand them, or I don't, sometimes things I don't like, but they challenge me. And this is good. This is what I say about the perfect social network. It has to be comfortable and safe so that you feel supported, but also you are challenged. Otherwise, again, it's too quiet and nothing
Yeah.
happens.
And then my other really intriguing term that you use in the book is strategic joy. It just seems like the two are almost at war with each other.
Yeah, this is not from me, but it is intentional. This is my point. The formula say you have to find your joyful purpose because it's not having a purpose. And if we don't have joy doing it, if you are not happy when doing it, what's the point? So to me, it's intentional. I love it was in I think it was in an article that I cite where I found this term of strategic joy. But it's that it's intentional. It's like, yes, I want to be happy. And again, to me, one of the ways is to build on what I like to do. I have passion, energy, and yeah, that's my
I mean, you
philosophy.
say, I think you say a better version of ourselves is misleading, as it
Yes.
often attempts to address our shortcomings instead of focusing on our strengths and what makes us unique and happy. I love that.
Thank you. Yeah, I know, and this is what I discovered. And again, this is my opinion. It might not resonate with other people. That's totally fine.
Well, I'm gonna try to immediately find joy. Maybe in a good cup of coffee, since for me it's still early.
Yes.
But
And no, this is an interesting point. People think that happiness and it might be the topic of another book actually, but happiness is this big thing that, happens to them. No, 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 no. It's in these little things. My husband is extremely good at that. Enjoying every single little pleasure in life. And this is how you're happy. And being in this place and I can see birds and I was looking at a bird. It was like, this red cardinal. They are so beautiful, and you have this red thing, and it's marvel. It's the awe, being in awe, because we need to go back to this childhood thing where we were in awe, we were discovering things, and when you are in this spirit, it brings joy. Because you are rediscovering the world, and you look at it a little bit differently.
it's funny because I've known you for years and I have never once heard you complain and whine the way my relatives do. I'm completely fascinated by it. I don't know whether it's a natural thing that you immediately don't let yourself, or if you're private about it, but I'm fascinated by your inability to whine and kvetch and complain.
No, no, I think it's a natural disposition.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you read that part in the book, the Tai Chi session, where I describe why I found why I was on this earth somewhere. You understand why? Because joy is my foundation. It is who I am. And in this society, a lot of people try to repress that.
Yes.
Yeah, and so no, no, this is me. This is who I am, and
As a PhD in chemistry, do you think that if your default is joy, doesn't it sort of change the patterns in your brain anyway? I mean, can't you sort of manipulate things to be redirected? Like, in other
again,
words,
this is
start with joy
yeah.
and then let the brain follow.
Well, this is again beyond my level of expertise. Okay, I'm not a doctor or whatever. But what I think is that when you have this attitude, our brains, and this is another fascinating topic, our brains are so flexible. They can rewire anytime, any
Yes.
age, which is good
Yes.
news for us aging.
Yes.
And
Yes.
it does rewire. So when you are positive, when you do positive things, you are with happy people, not toxic people that I eliminated from my life. And you are in this, you are nourishing your brain with all these positive things, and the brain is very smart. The brain just
Yeah.
combines all that and
Yeah.
creates opportunities based on this information.
I love it. I'm sorry we're out of time. I could go on and on, but it was wonderfully written. Champagne and apple pie. Hold it up for everybody so they can see again. And it's available on Amazon and on
Yeah.
your website, I believe.
Yes.
So, Fabienne, it's your website is remind everybody.
www.fabiennejacquet, all, in one word.com. Very
Okay.
easy.
Thank you so much for the
Thank
book
you,
and
Lisa.
for your wonderful optimism. Everybody needs it now, but I especially. So,
No, thank you for having me. It's great to be able to share my passion, and if I can inspire a couple of people, I'm good.
thanks. Bye-bye. See you soon. Thank you.
Well,
Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.